In the 7th year of my engagement to Chloe, she walked down the aisle with her new pop star boyfriend. I confronted her right in front of our business partners, only to be told, it's just a wedding. We're not getting a license or having kids. What's the big deal? I silently dropped the engagement ring and, turning to our partner, proposed a corporate merger secure by marriage. The night I posted our marriage certificate on Instagram, Chloe was at my front door, banging on it like a maniac. All the disheveled woman got from me was a cold statement. It's just a license and a baby on the way. No wedding. Don't make it a big deal. I was meeting with a potential new partner while my fiancée and her latest flame were holding their wedding ceremony in the exact same building. We had just managed to hammer out the details of a major deal when the other party CEO, Claire Sterling, gave me a pointed look. I believe that's your fiancé's wedding downstairs, she said, an eyebrow arched. They're about to exchange rings. Her words hit me like a physical blow. A wave of humiliation washed over me, but I forced a polite smile, excused myself, and headed downstairs. Sure enough, I arrived just as they were exchanging rings. My sudden appearance brought the ceremony to a halt. A collective gasp rippled through the crowd, followed by a unified whisper. Holy crap, it's Ethan. Chloe's face tightened with annoyance, her expression making it clear my presence was an unwelcome interruption. Ethan Vance, are you seriously following me here? This is too much. I flew halfway across the world to get away from you. What more do you want? She said it as if I were the same lovesick fool who'd spent years chasing her across continents. Chloe had a history of this kind of reckless behavior, a revolving door of boyfriends, and this was, in fact, her 3rd wedding ceremony. She had put me in an impossible position. If it weren't for the deep entanglement of our family businesses and my own lingering feelings, our families would have imploded long ago. But today, seeing the flicker of pity mixed with contempt in Claire Sterling's eyes, the carefully constructed facade of my dignity shattered. I stared at Chloe, my voice gone, and in that cold silence, a single thought crystallized. She wasn't worth it. My silence only seemed to irritate her further. With a dramatic sigh, she threw her hands up in a gesture of feigned helplessness. Don't be like this, she said, a bitter smile on her face. We're just having a ceremony. No license, no kids. It's not the first time, you know. I gave a slight nod. I pulled the engagement ring from my finger and tossed it onto the stage. It landed at her feet with a soft clink. It's fine, I said, my voice steady. But it's the last time. Chloe, we're done. For real. Her face went pale as she stared at the ring, but she quickly covered it with a scornful laugh. She probably thought it was just another empty threat, another tactic to reel her back in. After all we'd been through, she'd done far worse. But I didn't waste another word. I turned and walked out, the sound of the ceremony resuming behind me. A guest recorded the whole hour-long spectacle, and the video went viral. Because Chloe's new muse was a famous influencer, the clip exploded online. That's my idol. He and the heiress look so perfect together, right? She's been his biggest supporter since he first started streaming. Congrats to them, but watch out for that toxic ex. He's powerful. I hope he doesn't try to break up our favorite couple. Reading the comments, I could only sigh and shake my head. The naivety was laughable. The real problem was the fallout. My family's company and hers were tied together by our long-standing engagement, with numerous joint ventures hanging in the balance. With the alliance now broken, those projects were in jeopardy. My phone was already blowing up with calls from nervous partners. I was trapped between managing the business crisis and dealing with the inevitable blowback from Chloe's family. It was a complete mess. That's when Claire Sterling called. I expected her to cancel our deal. Instead, the moment I answered, she cut straight to the chase. Are you in the market for a new fiancé? The kind you get a license and have kids with? Her question stunned me. I had only met Claire Sterling once. Our companies had never even crossed paths before this. I couldn't understand why she would make such an offer, especially now. Before I could respond, she gave me the address of a restaurant and hung up. My mind was racing. Emotionally, I was nowhere near ready to accept someone else. But from a purely strategic standpoint, an alliance with the Sterling family was the single best move I could make. I arrived at the restaurant on time and saw her waiting. Claire Sterling was undeniably attractive, with a polished confidence that came from a lifetime of privilege. Every movement was graceful, making it easy to see why people were drawn to her. But her face was pale, something I noticed during our meeting. She looked fragile, almost sickly. Ms. Sterling, you can skip the formalities. Just call me Claire. Even so, I couldn't bring myself to do it. We weren't nearly familiar enough for that. Ms. Sterling, let's get straight to the point. What did you mean on the phone? Exactly what I said, she replied. I want you to marry me, and I want us to have a child together. I was completely baffled. The Sterling Empire was a powerhouse. She could have any man she wanted. Why me? And why the urgency to have a child? Seeing my confusion, Claire slid a folder across the table. It was a contract. Her reason for marrying me was just as she'd said, to have a child. The terms were astonishingly generous. If I agreed to father her child, she would personally bail out my family's company from the current crisis. Furthermore, our companies would share resources. If, down the line, I ever wanted a divorce, she wouldn't contest it and would even provide a substantial severance package. It was an incredible offer, a golden parachute falling from the sky. But I knew there was no such thing as a free lunch. I still don't understand, I said. This contract is weighted so heavily in my favor. It's almost like you're doing this just to help me. And why can't that be the case? She countered. Are you curious why I chose you? It's simple. I need a man with a strong heart to stand with me at the top. You fit the bill. She leaned forward slightly. After being betrayed by your fiancée for years, you never once tried to destroy her family in retaliation. It shows you're loyal and decent. A man like that is a man I can trust to have by my side. Her logic was so foreign, so transactional, that it left me speechless. Was this how the ultra-wealthy thought? If you know that much about me, I said carefully, then you also know Chloe, and I have years of history. That's not something I can just let go of overnight. That's fine, she said without hesitation. I have someone in my heart, too. We're even. No debts between us. Her words were a surprising relief. In our world, arranged marriages and contractual partnerships were common. This was just another variation on the theme. And if Chloe could have 3 weddings, why couldn't I have 1 marriage? All right, I said, my decision made. I'm in. Are you sure? She asked, her eyes searching mine. Once you agree, you'll be expected to fulfill all the duties of a husband, including at night. We were both adults. There was no need to be coy. Besides, how else were we supposed to have a child? Getting her pregnant with my heir would be a strategic victory, securing my child's future with the backing of 2 powerful families. My legacy would be cemented. Seeing me nod, Claire eagerly produced her personal documents. She wanted to go to the courthouse right then and there. I was taken aback by her haste, but I had already agreed. There was no point in delaying. I went home, grabbed my own documents, and we had a marriage license in hand before the day was over. Walking out of the city clerk's office, I felt a sense of whiplash. Was I really married? To someone else? It had taken less than 10 minutes to accomplish what 10 years with Chloe never could. Are you going to post about it? Claire asked, noticing me fiddling with my phone as I stared at our marriage certificates. Her question was a gentle nudge. Since you brought it up, why not? You don't mind? Of course not, she said with a sly smile. The question is, are you ready for someone else to mind? I understood her meaning. With a small, grim smile, I opened Instagram. A minute after I posted the picture of our marriage certificates, my phone exploded. My social circle and Chloe's were almost completely overlapping after a decade together. My feed was a chaotic mess of questions and congratulations. People demanded to know why I'd gotten married so suddenly without telling anyone. Many were jokingly tagging Chloe, telling her to get ready to plan the reception. And, of course, there were the accusations. How could I marry someone else the day after Chloe's wedding? Did I have no shame? I posted a single, clarifying comment. Yes, we're licensed. No, it's not Chloe. Please don't misunderstand. As of today, she and I are no longer connected. Please refrain from tagging her in matters concerning me. That comment ignited a new firestorm. Before my friends could even start grilling me, Chloe's call came through. Ethan, what the hell is this? What stupid game are you playing now? Did you really think posting a couple of fake certificates would make me come running back? Don't mess this up so badly that you can't explain it to my parents. You'll come crying to me then. I hung up before she could finish. Chloe had been coddled for too long. It was time for a reality check. I blocked her number, along with those of her sycophantic friends. The rest I could explain later. As I finished cleaning up my digital life, I glanced over and saw Claire was also on her phone, posting to her own account. In stark contrast to the chaos on my feed, hers was filled with nothing but clean, elegant messages of congratulations. It was surprisingly comforting to see. All right, the legal part is done, Claire said, slipping her phone into her purse. Now, for the practical part. Go pack your things. You're moving in with me. We have a baby to make, after all. For her to say something so blunt in broad daylight, without a hint of a blush, was astonishing. But a deal was a deal. I drove her to my house to pack a bag. I wasn't expecting to find Chloe's parents waiting on my doorstep, with a reluctant Chloe standing between them. The moment they saw me, the elderly couple rushed forward. Ethan, we brought our daughter to you, her father said, his voice pleading. What she did was unforgivable. Scold her. Punish her however you see fit. We won't interfere. Faced with this familiar drama, I could only find it laughable. But before I could even crack a smile, Chloe let out a snort. Dad, Mom, this act is getting old. As if Ethan would ever lay a hand on me. Don't be ridiculous. She sauntered toward me, arm outstretched as if to sling it casually over my shoulder. I reacted without thinking. My hand shot out, and the sharp crack of a slap echoed in the quiet street. Chloe froze, stunned. Her eyes were wide, as if trying to process what had just happened. But before she could, her parents gasped. Ethan, you actually hit her, her mother cried out. I flexed my stinging hand, a humorless smile playing on my lips. Isn't that what you wanted? I asked, looking from one to the other. You said I could do as I please. Or were you just putting on a show for me? A flicker of embarrassment crossed their faces. Seeing her parents falter, Chloe finally found her voice and lunged at me. What is wrong with you, Ethan? How dare you speak to my parents like that? They're your elders. What happened to the man with the impeccable manners? Did you feed your upbringing to the dogs? She jabbed a finger at my chest. I'm telling you, if you don't apologize to my parents right now, we are through. We're done for good. Her voice was loud, but it lacked conviction. It was a bluff. In our world, my reputation was sterling compared to hers. Her family's company was already in decline, with many of their old partners only sticking around out of respect for my involvement. If she truly alienated me, her family would be the ones to suffer the most. I just stood there, watching her silently, and her bravado began to crumble. What are you staring at? She stammered. Go on, apologize to them. And don't you forget, I saved your life. The mention of that sent a wave of nausea through me. Years ago, I'd gone skiing on a remote trail. Young and reckless, I triggered an avalanche and was buried under the snow. Just as I was losing hope, she found me. She dug me out. We huddled together, waiting for rescue. That shared trauma bonded us. After we were safe, we became inseparable, and soon she was the one pursuing me. Our families were on equal footing. She was a graduate from a top university, and her charm was undeniable. It felt natural for us to be together. But maybe the old saying is true. The longer you date, the harder it is to get married. As time went on, I wanted to settle down, but she wanted to keep playing for a few more years. That fundamental difference created a rift between us. We broke up countless times, but we were so entangled it was impossible to make a clean break. With every reconciliation, she grew more confident that I would always be there, waiting, and so her behavior became more and more outrageous. She never understood that my willingness to compromise wasn't just about my lingering feelings. It was about the business. When we first got together, my company was facing a massive crisis. She stood by me, helping me navigate the storm. I never forgot that debt, and I repaid it many times over when her family's business started to fail, often prioritizing their interests over my own, much to the frustration of my board. But things were different now. My company was stable. Over the years, as my feelings for her cooled, I had been quietly and methodically disentangling our corporate ties. Breaking up would mean taking a loss on a few joint projects, but it was a necessary price for my company's long-term health. And Claire Sterling had already offered to help mitigate those losses. All these thoughts flashed through my mind in an instant. I let out a long breath and met her gaze with a calm smile. What makes you think you have any right to make demands of me anymore? Chloe stared at me, then burst out laughing. Are you serious? Still playing tough? We've been doing this dance for 8 years. Who else do you think would marry you now? She sneered. Everyone in our circle knows about us. Did you really think a couple of fake marriage certificates would fool me? I wasn't born yesterday. She'd said things like that 1,000 times before. If you don't want another slap, I suggest you shut your mouth, I said, my voice dangerously low. The fact we couldn't get married after 8 years says everything about you, not me. You try to build yourself up by tearing me down, but what does that make you? If you want to fight, let's have it in the boardroom. Stop with these childish games. With that, I instructed my housekeeper to escort them out. I went inside, packed a small suitcase, and returned to the car where Claire was waiting. I'm sorry about that, I said, tossing the bag in the back. Had to take care of a little problem. Thanks for waiting. Claire just smiled and shook her head. No problem, I can wait. But, is that all you're bringing? Just that one small bag? I had only packed a carry-on. In my mind, a powerhouse like her was probably never home. I figured I'd only need to be there when she was, so I just brought the essentials. I don't have much, I said. Besides, you're probably not home much, right? The moment the words left my mouth, I regretted them. Would she be offended? Her expression did darken slightly, but she didn't comment. She drove us to her place, a stunning duplex penthouse in the heart of the city. 2 full floors had been combined to create a single, sprawling residence. It wasn't a mansion in the suburbs, but the decor was warm and surprisingly comfortable. If you're not comfortable here, I have other properties we can go to, she offered, carrying my bag into a guest bedroom. No, This is great, I said, genuinely impressed. It's perfect, actually, and close to the office. As a man, I didn't need much. The place I was living in was inherited, and I'd only stayed out of habit. A place like this was exactly what I would have chosen for myself. She gave me a quick tour. The apartment was spacious and had every amenity imaginable. There's a gourmet market downstairs for anything you need, she said. Get settled. Make a list of anything you're missing. We'll go shopping for new stuff later if you need to. Her casual thoughtfulness caught me off guard. It occurred to me that I hadn't considered the practicalities. A woman's home would have different things than mine. Sorry, I said. I should have thought of that. It's okay, she replied with a small smile. That's a husband's prerogative, I suppose. A little oversight is forgivable. She called herself my wife. The word, so simple, sent an unexpected jolt through me. I quickly went into the bedroom and unpacked. As I made a list, I realized I needed quite a lot. The small suitcase was what I used for short business trips. It was barely adequate for moving in. Left with no choice, I went downstairs with her to the market. We had just walked in when we ran into someone unexpected. Unexpected because he was my new wife's husband. Or rather, her ex-husband. Claire, you're back. I can't believe I'm running into you here. At the sound of his voice, Claire's face lit up. They shared a warm, enthusiastic hug before she turned back to me. Ivan, I didn't know you were back in the country. It's been too long. I want you to meet my husband, Ethan Vance. Ivan's eyebrows shot up. He looked me up and down before extending a hand. So you're Ethan Vance. I saw your Instagram post. Congratulations. Officially, I'm Ivan, Claire's ex-husband. The situation was awkward. They seemed to be on such good terms. Why are they divorced? And how had I never known that the great Claire Sterling had been married before? I shook his hand, my mind reeling with questions. They exchanged a few more pleasantries before we went our separate ways. On the way back to the apartment, Claire kept glancing at me, making me feel increasingly uneasy. Is there something you want to ask? I finally said. I was just wondering, she replied, if you were going to ask about Ivan and me. I considered it. We had a contract. Her past wasn't really my business, was it? That's your private life. It's not my place to interfere, I said, trying to sound professional. This is a contractual marriage. You can rest assured, I have a strong sense of professional ethics. For some reason, my answer made her press harder on the accelerator. The car lurched forward. Was she angry? I couldn't figure out why. What had I said wrong? It turned out she was angry. When we got back to the apartment, she didn't say another word to me, disappearing into her home office and shutting the door. I didn't dwell on it. Work had been piling up, and I had an urgent video conference to join. So I stayed in the bedroom, and she stayed in her office. We worked in our separate spaces, two strangers under one roof. Hours passed. It was only when she knocked on the bedroom door to tell me dinner was ready that I realized I'd been working for over 5 hours straight. I'm so sorry, I said, feeling a pang of guilt. I didn't realize it was so late. You shouldn't have had to make dinner. Why not? Isn't this what a wife does? She countered. We may have a contract, but we still need to prepare to be parents. Or do you want our child to think we don't love each other? Her talk of the future felt premature. I had agreed to have a child with her, but love? That seemed like a stretch. Does love really blossom from an arrangement like this in the real world? I was too hungry to argue the point. After dinner, we ended up on the sofa in the living room, a silent, awkward tension between us. I scrolled through work emails on my phone while she watched a soccer game on TV. I could feel her unease, but I didn't know how to break the silence. Despite our contract, we were still complete strangers. Just as I thought the awkwardness would last all night, a frantic banging came from the front door. Ethan Vance, you get out here. Did you really get married? Show your face. It was Chloe. I clenched my jaw. What is she doing now? I thought we had settled things this afternoon. But my immediate concern wasn't Chloe. It was Claire's reaction. I never told her where I was. I said quickly, turning to Claire. I have no idea how she found this place. I told her about us, but she didn't believe me. I trailed off, surprised by the note of panic in my own voice. Claire, however, remained perfectly composed. A small, unreadable smile played on her lips. It's fine, she said calmly. Go deal with it. If you don't make things crystal clear, she'll keep coming back. I don't want that kind of trouble in our future. Her detached attitude was unsettling. For some reason, it left me feeling a little disappointed, but I nodded and went to the door. Chloe, what is this madness? I said, opening it just a crack. If you don't leave, I'm calling the police. She was drunk, reeking of alcohol. I saw it on someone's Instagram story, she slurred. With some woman shopping for groceries. And she bought condoms. Tell me what you were doing. Who is that bitch? I could tolerate her insults toward me. I still felt I owed her for my life. but I wouldn't let her speak about Claire that way. You need to calm down, I said, my voice cold. And you need to watch your mouth. If you say one more word like that, you'll regret it. My warning seemed to stun her for a moment. Then, her eyes glazed over with rage, and she swung at me. I moved to block her, but suddenly a warm presence was at my back. Before I could react, another hand shot past me, and a sharp slap echoed through the hallway. Claire had struck Chloe across the face. You dare come to my home and insult me? Claire's voice was like ice. You really have some nerve. The Reed family's upbringing is truly a cause for concern. Chloe scrambled to her feet, and Claire's arm instinctively wrapped around my waist, pulling me close. The sight seemed to break something in Chloe. Her eyes turned bloodshot. Who are you? She shrieked. Do you have any idea that he and I were together for 8 years? Do you know there isn't a part of his body I haven't touched? What gave you the right to steal him from me? Her words hung in the air, thick with humiliation. I was, after all, Claire's husband now. To have this thrown in her face was mortifying. Ms. Sterling, is that something you're proud of? Claire cut me off, her gaze fixed on Chloe. 8 years, and you turned around and married someone else? You think that's an accomplishment? You think saying things like that changes anything? Let me tell you something. A person like you will never find lasting happiness. If you take a piece of advice, I suggest you get your life together before it's too late. I was stunned by her composure. A storm of conflicting emotions churned inside me. After I shut the door, Chloe continued to scream and pound on it from the hallway. Fed up, I called security, who then called the police. I didn't feel relieved until they had taken her away. Seeing that I had finally taken decisive action, Claire seemed pleased. She poured me a glass of red wine. It must be exhausting being entangled with someone like that, she said. I sighed. It was more than exhausting. Looking back, I didn't know how I had tolerated it for so many years. I don't know why, I admitted. I always thought that one day she would change, that we still had a future. We had good memories, once upon a time. But if you're only holding on because of memories, that connection will eventually fade, Claire said softly. And when the memories run out, the relationship becomes a burden. It took you 8 years to see that. Are you sure you're ready to move on now? I knew what she was asking. She was worried I would go back to Chloe. Don't worry, I assured her. I signed a contract. I intend to honor it. I'm a man of my word. A flicker of disappointment crossed her eyes, so brief, I almost missed it. Sometimes, she said quietly, I wish it wasn't just about the contract. I'll sleep in the guest room tonight. I don't want our first time to be under these circumstances. With that, she took the rest of the wine and disappeared into the guest room. I took a shower, trying to clear my head. As I stepped out of the bathroom, Chloe's words came back to me. Did she say Claire had bought condoms? Was that a drunken lie? Or was it true? If she married me to have a child, why would she buy condoms? I dismissed it. Chloe was probably just making things up. Shaking the thoughts from my head, I lay down in bed, trying to empty my mind. I expected a sleepless night, but surprisingly, I slept soundly. I woke early for a morning run and came back to make a simple breakfast. When Claire emerged from the guest room, her eyes lit up at the sight of the food on the table. I didn't know you could cook, she said, a genuine smile on her face. I studied abroad for a few years, I replied. You learn when you're hungry. Same here, she said with a laugh. After breakfast, I headed straight to my company. There was still a lot to handle, especially the joint ventures with the Reed family. It was best to dissolve them amicably. Without the marriage alliance, pushing those projects forward would be difficult. If our partners were the first to suggest finding new collaborators, we would be at a significant disadvantage. The best course of action was for one of us to buy out the other's stake. Ideally, I would acquire the projects and bring Claire in as my new partner. Of course, if Chloe refused to sell, I could let her have them. But given her track record, I worried she would run them into the ground, souring relationships with our longtime partners and damaging my own future prospects. That was the worst-case scenario. I called a board meeting as soon as I got to the office. The majority agreed with my proposal to acquire the projects. I had my assistant contact Chloe, but she was being difficult. She refused to discuss the deal unless I met with her in person. For the sake of the company, I had no choice but to agree. The moment we sat down, the first thing she brought up was Claire. I know who that woman you were with at the market is, she said with a smirk. I have to hand it to you, Ethan. You move fast. I didn't think you had it in you to land the Sterling heiress. I just smiled. I'm still a bit slower than you, I retorted. After all, I got my license after your wedding. Ethan, have you no shame? She shot back, her voice rising. You were cheating on me, stringing me along while you were cozying up to someone else. And you have the audacity to call me promiscuous. Watching her righteous indignation was like watching a clown perform. I think you're mistaken about something, I said calmly. I got together with her after we broke up. And you expect me to believe that? Why would the great Claire Sterling want your sloppy seconds? Hearing her insult me like that again, something inside me snapped. I picked up my cup of coffee and threw its contents at her face. Let me remind you one more time, I seethed. If you can't speak respectfully, then you should learn to keep your mouth shut. If I really wanted to burn everything to the ground, how much of a fight could you possibly put up? Perhaps she finally realized I was serious. The fight went out of her. After a moment's hesitation, her demeanor softened. Ethan, I'm sorry, she stammered, wiping coffee from her face. I was just upset. I didn't mean it. You know, I don't always think before I speak. You're right. I cut her off. You don't think at all. It was a family trait. Whenever they made a mistake, they would resort to self-deprecation, a tactic designed to guilt the other person into forgiveness. I had fallen for it before, letting my sense of obligation cloud my judgment. But not anymore. That brain of yours is only good for manipulating naive young men, I said coldly. I suggest you start acting like a decent human being. You threw a wedding for that guy. Try not to mess it up. I leaned in slightly, and even though you never got a license with any of them, holding 3 public wedding ceremonies with 3 different men, that's a huge public scandal waiting to happen. You know that, right? You've been lucky no one has made a bigger deal of it. But if they did, do you really think you could handle the fallout? Her face went pale. The fool. Had no one ever explained the concept of public relations suicide to her? If the weddings had been in different countries, it might have been manageable. But in a deliberate act of humiliation aimed at me, all 3 had been in the same city, at the same venue. The guest list was nearly identical each time. If I wanted to ruin her, I had a legion of witnesses. Sell me your shares in the projects, I said, my voice leaving no room for argument. It's your best and only option. Don't say I didn't warn you when you lose everything. I didn't want to waste any more time with her. I delivered my ultimatum and left. A few days later, I received word that she had agreed to sell. However, the price was still up for negotiation. I knew it was a ploy. Chloe had stipulated that any price negotiations had to be done with me, in person. The whole situation was infuriating. I spent an entire day feeling like I was running in circles, accomplishing nothing. In a fit of frustration, I threw my phone against the wall. That afternoon, as I was leaving the office, I was surprised to see Claire's car parked out front. She got out, holding a bouquet of roses, and walked toward me with a radiant smile. There you are, she said. If I didn't know you were working late, I might have thought my new husband had run off on me. I was momentarily stunned. It was so unexpected to see this powerful woman teasing me. I'm sorry, I said. Why didn't you come up? I didn't want to disturb you. Besides, I had some work to do in the car, she replied, her eyes twinkling. I hear you had a rough day. Smash your phone, even. I sheepishly pulled out the shattered device. I had planned to get a new one on my way home, never expecting she would be here. How did you know? The gossip mill at your company is very efficient, she said with a laugh. They're all thrilled you finally dumped the toxic ex, and even more thrilled that a vastly superior woman is now pursuing you. I knew it had to be the younger women in the office. I had a good relationship with my staff. We were a young team, and I encouraged a relaxed atmosphere. I wasn't above listening to a little office gossip myself. Over time, they'd gotten bold enough to gossip about me, but I knew it came from a place of concern. They had a front row seat to Chloe's treatment of me over the years. My apologies, I said. The junior staff can be a bit chatty. I hope I didn't say anything out of line. Not at all. They're adorable, she assured me. They even gave me a list of your favorite things. So, Korean barbecue tonight. The surprises just kept coming. I love Korean barbecue. The sizzle and smoke always felt more communal, more real. After my parents passed away, it was one of the few things that gave me a sense of family. But many people, especially Chloe, found it unhealthy and couldn't stand the smell. The idea that Claire wanted to go was, nice. Seriously? You don't mind that kind of food? I'm not a goddess from Mount Olympus, she joked. I don't subsist on ambrosia and nectar. Her easy, disarming humor chipped away at the wall I had built around myself. We had a fantastic meal, then went to the mall to buy me a new phone before heading home together. But as we approached her apartment, we found a lavishly dressed, imposing woman waiting by the door, radiating hostility. Well, look who finally decided to show up, the woman sneered, her eyes fixed on me. It's long past closing time. Who knows where you've been fooling around? She finds herself a pretty boy, and he's not even responsible enough to be home on time. Just out shopping and wasting time. The words were sharp and dripping with a venom I didn't understand. I glanced at Claire, who looked utterly exasperated. Mom, Claire said, her voice tight with frustration. I've told you before, I'd prefer it if you didn't just show up here. If you have so much free time, go to a spa, play some bridge. Why do you insist on meddling in my life? This was Claire's mother? I didn't know much about the Sterling family. Only that Claire had been raised abroad. I'd heard her mother had passed away years ago. So who was this woman? Her stepmother? Ew. The woman was so angry she could barely speak, pointing a trembling finger at Claire. Finally, her fury turned back to me. It's all your fault. You've corrupted my daughter. She used to be so obedient, and now she's learned to defy me. I was completely bewildered, a sinking feeling in my stomach telling me I had just jumped from one fire into another. But then, Claire stepped in front of me, squaring off against her mother. Don't you dare blame him, she said, her voice steely. You know exactly why I don't want to see you. If you had ever treated me like a human being, we wouldn't be at this point. To be honest, sometimes I wish the real Mrs. Sterling had been my biological mother. The slap was so loud it echoed in the hallway. The woman's face was contorted with rage. You ungrateful child. After I carried you for 9 months. Do you have any idea how hard that was? She shrieked. If I hadn't fought my way into your father's life, you wouldn't have any of this luxury. And now you dare talk to me like that? You dare take that woman's side? Have you lost your mind? The outburst was packed with information. So this woman was Claire's birth mother, and the late Mrs. Sterling was not. Claire didn't even flinch. A cold, heartbreaking smile touched her lips. I wish I hadn't been born to you at all, she said, her voice trembling with emotion. Then I could finally be free of this curse. And now I finally understand why Dad left you all those years ago. It wasn't for money or status. It was because you are not worth loving. Her mother looked ready to explode, but Claire ignored her, grabbing my hand and pulling me inside the apartment. She slammed the door shut, not even checking to see if her mother's hand was in the way. Inside, I hesitated, unsure what to say. I wanted to comfort her, but I was afraid of saying the wrong thing and making it worse. After a few moments of tense silence, she came over to me. She took my hand, her expression vulnerable. Was your mother good to you? She asked, her voice barely a whisper. My mother died in childbirth. She had a serious illness and chose to save me at the cost of her own life. I never met her, but my father always told me how much she loved me, how she had planned my entire future while I was still in her womb. She even chose my name. I never met her, I said softly, but my father told me she loved me very much. A bitter smile crossed Claire's face. She pulled a cigarette from her purse and placed it between her lips, but didn't light it. Most people don't know, she began, that the real Mrs. Sterling was infertile. I'm the illegitimate daughter. My jaw dropped. I had guessed some of it, but hearing her confirm it was another thing entirely. My father was a romantic, the kind who would choose love over legacy, she explained. He and my mother had a whirlwind romance and ran away together. But it didn't take long for the fights to start. My mother is intensely possessive. She was convinced he would eventually leave her and return to his wealthy family. Her voice was flat, devoid of emotion. Her constant suspicion and control pushed him away. In the end, he did exactly what she feared most. He left. It was a story straight out of a soap opera. What happened then? I asked gently. The story that followed was dark, a painful part of her life that was clear from the deep sigh she let out before continuing. When he left, he didn't know she was pregnant with me. She gave birth to me, filled with resentment for him. That resentment she directed at me. I was beaten for any perceived slight. It's a miracle I survived to be 9 years old. Around that time, my father found out about me and wanted to bring me home, but my mother refused. She tried to use me as leverage to force him to marry her. But she was also desperate for money. It wasn't long before she sold me to him for $50,000. From her account, her childhood with her birth mother was a living hell of abuse and control. She would beat me for the smallest things. Claire continued, her voice hollow. A few times it was so bad I passed out. If the neighbors hadn't intervened, I probably would have died. Eventually, she went to live with her father and his new wife, the woman who would become known as Mrs. Sterling. Mrs. Sterling was a classic career woman who had entered into a marriage of convenience with Claire's father to avoid a family-arranged match. Mrs. Sterling couldn't have children, Claire explained. So my arrival filled a void for her. It was a strange situation, but she accepted me. She gave me the best education, the best of everything. She taught me everything I know. A flicker of warmth entered her eyes. It's ironic, isn't it? I learned what a mother's love was from my father's wife, a woman who wasn't even my blood. When I was sick, she would stay by my bedside all night. Her voice broke, but she died too soon. She never got to see me succeed, never saw me stand on my own 2 feet. After she was gone, my father brought my birth mother back into our lives, and my nightmare began all over again. As she told her story, The sadness radiating from her was so profound it was painful to witness. I acted on instinct, pulling her into my arms and holding her close. That night, we slept in the same bed, but it wasn't sexual. She curled up against me like a child seeking comfort, and I simply held her, offering what little warmth I could. The next morning, I woke to find her beautiful face just inches from mine. "Morning," she whispered. "Morning, husband," she replied with a soft smile. Chloe had called me that countless times, and it had always sounded childish, meaningless. But coming from Claire, the word felt different. It resonated. A sudden heat rushed to my face. What do you want for breakfast?" I'll go make it." I scrambled out of bed, avoiding her gaze, and could have sworn I heard her chuckle softly. I quickly got ready and headed to the kitchen. I kept it simple. Some oatmeal, toast, and fresh fruit. She wasn't a picky eater and finished everything. "Let's have lunch together," she said as we cleaned up. "I've scheduled a negotiation with a friend. I could use your help. You want me involved in your company's business? Is that appropriate?" "Don't forget, we're husband and wife," she reminded me with a pointed look. "If my company goes down, you're not exactly walking away unscathed." "Husband and wife." She said it again, and the words sent ripples through me. It wasn't just a title anymore. It felt like our lives were truly intertwined. In 8 years with Chloe, even at our best, I had never felt this sense of connection. Had I already fallen for Claire after just a few days? I didn't have an answer, and I wasn't sure I wanted to dig too deep. Some things were better left to unfold naturally. At lunch, I was completely blindsided. The friend she was meeting was Chloe. The moment Chloe saw me, we both froze. I looked at Claire, who was smiling like a fox. "Ethan, what are you doing here?" Chloe demanded. Before I could formulate a response, Claire answered for me. "The deal we're discussing concerns my husband. It's only natural he should be here to listen." A deal that concerned me? What were they talking about? What possible business could they have together? Before I could ask, Chloe shot up from her chair, her voice laced with panic. "You know what? Today's not a good day to talk business. Let's reschedule. I have to go. If you walk out that door, the deal is off the table," Claire said coolly. "This is a one-time offer." Chloe stopped dead, her jaw clenched. She reluctantly sat back down, her eyes shooting daggers at Claire. "You're a real piece of work," she hissed. "Takes one to know one," Claire replied with a saccharine smile. I was completely lost, trying to decipher the cryptic exchange. Then, their conversation laid it all bare, and I was left speechless. The deal they were discussing was me. Chloe was offering to trade me for a business asset. Years ago, Chloe's father had acquired a massive, undeveloped tract of prime timberland in the Pacific Northwest, rich with old-growth cedar. Its value had since skyrocketed. Claire had a new sustainable luxury development project that required exactly that kind of rare, high-quality wood. Acquiring that land would be a massive coup for her, and Chloe's asking price was for me to come back to her. "Chloe, you're disgusting," I finally managed to say, my voice shaking with rage. "What do you think I am? A toy you can pick up and discard whenever you please?" Seeing my anger, Chloe's composure crumbled. She jumped up, trying to placate me. "Ethan, listen to me. I can explain. I know it sounds crazy, but I couldn't think of any other way to get you back. I know I was wrong. I'll apologize. I'll get on my knees and beg if I have to. Please, just come back to me." I didn't understand what had prompted this sudden change of heart. The last I'd heard from the gossip sites, she was living a fairy tale life with her influencer boyfriend. Why the sudden desperation to get me back? I could investigate later. Right now, all I wanted to do was slap her. But I was more interested in Claire's position. "Ms. Sterling," I said, turning to her, "what's your take on this deal?" Claire took a slow, deliberate sip of water. "We're married, Ethan. You should be calling me your wife." Was she serious? Now was not the time for games. But then I saw the playful, teasing glint in her eyes, and I understood. She was messing with me. And more importantly, she was messing with Chloe. The rage that had been boiling inside me instantly cooled. Looking at her confident smile, I realized why she had brought me here. It was all a power play designed to put Chloe in her place. "Chloe," Claire said, her voice now devoid of its earlier playfulness. "What on earth makes you think a piece of land could ever be worth a man's heart? In my world, Ethan's loyalty is priceless. It's not for sale. You would do well to remember that." Her words stunned Chloe into silence. They stunned me, too. Had we known each other before all of this? The question lingered in my mind all the way home. I was so lost in thought that Claire misinterpreted my silence. "What's wrong?" she asked, a hint of jealousy in her tone. "Did seeing her so upset get to you?" Her slight insecurity was oddly endearing. "No, not all," I said, shaking my head. "I was just wondering. Have we met before?" She just smiled, a mysterious look in her eyes, and didn't answer. Her silence was all the confirmation I needed. We had met before. But before I could press her, her phone rang. I saw the name on the screen. Ivan. The voice on the other end was loud and frantic, clear enough for me to hear every word. Claire, I need your help. The baby is sick. The words hit me like a bolt of lightning. A baby? Claire and Ivan had a child together? So, she was already a mother. Then why marry me? Why did she need me to have another child? My mind spiraled, jumping to conclusions I couldn't bear to face. Claire hung up the phone without a word of explanation and rushed out the door. I couldn't blame her. Her child was clearly her priority. I didn't go back to the office that afternoon. I just sat on the sofa in the silent apartment, my mind a blank. Then, a text from Chloe came through. It was a photo. In it, Claire and Ivan were standing side by side next to a hospital bed, looking down at a small child. I never thought it would turn out like this. It was strange. I hadn't known Claire for long, but seeing that picture felt like a knife in my gut. She didn't come home that night. She didn't call. The apartment felt vast and empty. I barely slept. The next morning, Claire's mother showed up, barging in and immediately starting it on me. You are unbelievable, she snapped. It's this late, and you're still sleeping? Shouldn't you be making breakfast to take to my daughter at the hospital? Or did you not know she's been at the hospital all night with the child? I stared at her, completely bewildered. Her daughter was looking after her grandchild. What did that have to do with me? We had a business arrangement. I wasn't obligated to make anyone breakfast, and I was sure Claire wasn't waiting on me for a meal. Ma'am, I said, trying to keep my voice even. Your daughter and I are married. Yes, but I have my own life and responsibilities. I have to get to work today. I don't have time to run errands. If your daughter needs breakfast, I can have something delivered. My response sent her into a fury. She threw her designer handbag at my feet. What is that supposed to mean? She shrieked, hands on her hips. You have your own life? If that's your attitude, then you should just get a divorce. I never liked you anyway. She looked me up and down with disgust. I don't know what she sees in you that's better than Ivan. That foolish girl. She insisted on divorcing him to marry you. If I hadn't been out of the country, I would have stopped her. Her words were like fuel on a fire. Don't act like your daughter is some prize everyone is lining up for. I shot back, my patience gone. Our marriage is a business transaction. Call me a gold digger. Say I'm using her for her money. I don't care. There are no feelings involved, so your attempts to stir up trouble are pointless. I met her furious gaze without flinching. If you want me to divorce your daughter, you need to take it up with her. Wasting your breath on me is useless. Until I get what I'm owed from this deal, no one is convincing me to give up the advantages I've gained. Just as the words left my mouth, there was a loud crash from the doorway. I turned to see Claire standing there. She must have just gotten back. A paper bag was on the floor at her feet, its contents, breakfast and coffee, spilled across the new rug. Seeing her, I felt a pang of guilt. She had clearly heard everything, and my words must have sounded brutal. But then again, wasn't it the truth? She had helped me immensely these past few weeks, untangling the mess with Chloe's projects and setting me up for a smooth transition. I was grateful for that. But my feelings for her were a confusing mess, tangled up with suspicions about her and her ex-husband. And since our marriage was a contract, I felt I had no right to question her about it. Oh, darling, you're finally back, her mother exclaimed, rushing to her side. Did you hear what this man said? He's only with you for your money and your company. How can you keep a leech like this around? I'm telling you, you need to divorce him and get back together with Ivan. I stood silently, waiting for Claire's response, feeling like a defendant awaiting a verdict. But before she could speak, a man's voice, laced with sarcasm, cut through the tension. Did I hear that right? You want Claire to get back together with me? A figure emerged from behind Claire. It was Ivan. That's Rich. When we were together, you couldn't find a single thing you liked about me. You'd find fault with the way I breathed. Now you want us to remarry? What's the matter? Nobody around to cook your precious sea base just the way you like it? I blinked. Ivan was here too, and he was holding a small girl in his arms. She looked to be about 3 or 4, with a fever patch on her forehead, looking adorable and miserable as she snuggled against his chest. Stung by Ivan's mockery, Claire's mother flushed. Well, it's a matter of choosing the lesser of two evils, she sniffed. Compared to him, you're an improvement. Ivan let out a cold laugh. He carried the sleeping child into one of the bedrooms before coming back out, ready for battle. Don't be so sure, ma'am. On my worst day, I'm probably still better than any man you could find, he said. And you should probably be nicer to your son-in-law. You might not depend on him now, but you will in your old age. Your daughter is crazy about him. One little word from him, and your retirement fund could get a lot smaller. I was stunned. Ivan was a verbal brawler, trading blows with Claire's mother until she was so flustered she stormed out in a huff. I watched the whole exchange, feeling like I was in the middle of a bizarre play. When she was gone, Ivan turned to us, noticing the strange atmosphere. He nudged Claire. Seriously? You still haven't told your husband about us? Claire looked exhausted from her long night. Her eyes were wide and bewildered, giving her a fragile appearance. I didn't think it was necessary, she mumbled. It's your and the baby's private matter. Ivan threw his hands up in exasperation. Are you kidding me? He's your husband. If you don't tell him, he's going to assume the worst. Your relationship is already on shaky ground. You don't need a misunderstanding like this making it worse. You'll be on your third marriage before you know it. I didn't understand everything he was saying, but it was becoming clear that their relationship wasn't what I had assumed. Ivan proceeded to explain everything. He had been deeply in love with his girlfriend, but she passed away unexpectedly shortly after their daughter was born. He was left a single father, with his family pressuring him to enter an arranged marriage. None of the wealthy debutantes they paraded before him were willing to be his stepmother. His parents even suggested he give the child up. You have no idea how desperate I was, he said. My only option was to ask my girlfriend's best friend for help. Claire was a saint. She married me without a second thought, which gave me the legal standing I needed to keep my daughter. He looked at Claire with deep affection. Over the last couple of years, I've managed to gain full control of my family's company. No one can threaten me or my daughter anymore. I've held Claire hostage in this arrangement for too long. It was time to let her go. It turned out that Claire and Ivan's girlfriend had been friends since childhood. When Claire was first brought into the Sterling family, she was an outcast. Ivan's girlfriend was the only one who treated her with kindness, and they became as close as sisters, even studying abroad together. Where her best friend died, leaving behind a daughter, Claire couldn't stand by and watch the child be taken away. The whole thing was a massive misunderstanding. And in the middle of that realization, another one hit me. My feelings for Claire were becoming very real. Okay, I've cleared the air, Ivan said, giving me a pointed look. The rest is up to you too. But buddy, let me give you a piece of advice. A woman like Claire Sterling doesn't marry anyone unless she wants to. As he finished, Claire suddenly snapped to life. Ivan, are you done? Your daughter is still sleeping in my room. Take her home. She's not even fully recovered, and you're dragging her all over the city. Are you trying to make her sick again? Ivan just rolled his eyes, went to get his daughter, and left. After he was gone, Claire approached me, looking surprisingly vulnerable. Was it true? She asked quietly. Well, my mother said you said that you only married me for the benefits. I thought about it. Initially, yes, it was for the benefits. But now, I wasn't so sure. Let me think about it, I said honestly. But I can tell you this for sure. It's not just for the benefits anymore. A wave of relief washed over her face, and she broke into a radiant smile, insisting on going out to buy me a new breakfast. I was distracted for the rest of the day at the office, my mind replaying our conversation. But my thoughts were interrupted by Chloe, who showed up unannounced, using the remaining 2 projects as an excuse to see me. You've seen the picture, she said smugly. She was gone all night, and you two are only together for business, right? You found her to help with the projects. We get it. You got married. I had a wedding. We're even. Come back, Ethan. It's just easier for our families to work together. Her audacity was breathtaking. I couldn't help but laugh. What have I ever done to make you think working with you is easier for me? Is it the part where I do all the work and you just slap your name on it? Or the part where you take the lion's share of the profits? Working with you is great for you, Chloe. For me, not so much. She looked panicked, leaning across my desk. But I love you. If you think the profit split is unfair, we can change it. I'll learn. I'll take on more projects. I'll share the burden. Her voice grew desperate. We have 8 years of history, Ethan. You can't just forget that. The mention of our past brought a pang of sadness. When my father died suddenly, she was the one who stood by me, helping me navigate the corporate turmoil as sharks circled, waiting for me to fail. In a way, she had saved me twice. And yet, this was the same person who had shattered my heart. The worst part was her complete lack of remorse, her belief that I was the one overreacting. But it was all an act. She knew exactly what she was doing. So you always knew, I said, the realization dawning on me. You always knew that what you did was unforgivable. So why did you do it? Not once, but 3 times. My voice was quiet, but heavy with the weight of her betrayal. My love for you made you reckless. Well, I'm taking back now. You're on your own. She stared at me, dumbfounded, as if she couldn't comprehend my stubbornness. Why, she demanded. I just had a ceremony. No license, no kids. That woman has a whole child with another man, and you just ignore it, but you can't forgive me for this one thing. I had no intention of explaining the situation with Ivan and his daughter. The child, kids. That woman has a whole child with another man, and you just ignore it, but you can't forgive me for this one thing. I had no intention of explaining the situation with Ivan and his daughter. The child deserves her privacy. At least her situation is legitimate. Why are you so worked up? I said, the words tasting like ash in my mouth. And besides, Claire and I are just getting a license and having a baby. No wedding. What's the big deal? The moment I said it, I wanted to tape my mouth shut. Why did Claire always manage to walk in at the exact worst moment? I had just finished my sentence when I looked up and saw Claire pushing the office door open. She had heard every word about not having a wedding, and her face fell. With a deliberately calculated move, she strode past Chloe, bumping her shoulder hard enough to send her stumbling into the glass wall of my office. A good dog knows not to block the path, Claire said sweetly. And what is this stray doing in here anyway? If you want to bark, go find a tree outside. The insult was so blatant it left Chloe speechless. Claire Sterling, it's you again. Get out of his office. That's an interesting command, Claire replied, her voice dangerously smooth. I'm his legal wife. Who are you to tell me to leave? I'm the one who knows you have child. Chloe shot back, a triumphant glint in her eyes. He can't stand betrayal. You think he's going to spend his life with you when you have a kid that big running around? Claire just laughed, a low, dismissive sound. Save your pathetic howling. Even if I had a child, Ethan would still be the only one for me. Unlike you, with your 3 grooms. How thrilling. Now, sign over the remaining projects, or I will make your life a living hell. Chloe left in a state of disheveled fury. Once you got to know Claire, you realized her tongue was sharper than any knife. After Chloe was gone, Claire planted herself in front of my desk and stared at me for a long, uncomfortable moment. Aren't you busy at your company? I asked, trying to break the silence. We've just taken on all these new projects. You must have a lot to prepare. And we still haven't secured the last 2 from her. We need a plan. Claire just sniffed haughtily. Oomph. And who am I to you that I should be making plans for you? I don't work for free, you know. No title, no effort. I had a laugh. Are you serious? It was just a slip of the tongue. You don't have to hold it against me. A slip of the tongue? She retorted, her eyes flashing. I finally get the husband I've been waiting for, and before I can even properly win him over, the wedding is already canceled. You bet I'm going to hold it against you. I spent the better part of the afternoon placating her, but I still couldn't bring myself to give a firm answer about a wedding. To be honest, the very idea of one now filled me with a sense of dread. But after that day, the last wall between us crumbled. We started acting like a real couple. Later, on her birthday, she finally managed to lure me in her bed. Her mother had called and berated her for an hour, leaving her heartbroken. We drank, and one thing led to another. The morning after, she was curled up in my arms, tearfully begging me to make it official with a wedding. I of course agreed. Chloe eventually signed over the last 2 projects. Not because she wanted to, but because she had no other choice. Her company was imploding. With our alliance officially terminated, many of her key clients had followed me, triggering a massive cash flow crisis. If she had sold the project to me earlier, she could have stabilized the rest of her business. But her obsession with getting me back had cost her precious time, leading to catastrophic losses on her other ventures. Her crisis became my opportunity. I knew her family's company inside and out. Acquiring it at a low price would be a brilliant strategic move. But I couldn't do it alone. I needed a partner. So, I went back to Claire. You want to talk about Chloe's company? She asked, her eyes narrowing with suspicion. What is it, feeling nostalgic? Can't let go of all the memories you 2 made in that office. Her jealousy was becoming more frequent and more endearing. Why are you always so jealous? I laughed. Do you really think this is about nostalgia? This is about finishing it. That company is the Reed family's lifeline. I'm going to cut it. Don't you want to see that? She considered it for a moment, then nodded. Okay, Edo. But you can't blame me for being insecure. You and she had 8 years together. You know everything about each other. I have nothing. I don't care what we have to do. You're taking me skiing. Worn down by her persistence, I agreed to a long list of reparations, and she happily joined me in the acquisition. When we met with Chloe again, she was a shadow of her former self. The vibrant, confident woman was gone, replaced by someone haggard and defeated. I hadn't been following her downfall closely, but the office gossip mill kept me informed. All 3 of her grooms had caused a massive public scandal, each demanding an explanation. She had tried to buy their silence, but soon discovered a more serious problem: her health. Someone in her circle had been the carrier. Chloe had contracted an STD. While not life-threatening, it was serious and complicated, and she had passed it on to all 3 men: a celebrity, a college student, and the son of a prominent political family. The fallout was catastrophic. She was a social pariah. She drained her savings on legal fees and medical bills. Her reputation was in tatters. People avoided her like the plague. "I knew you'd take over the company," she said, her voice raspy. "I knew you wouldn't let fail." The wolf sitting next to me let out a low growl. I smiled and nodded. "You're right. I wouldn't let the company fail. But I have no problem watching you fail. Selling the company will barely cover your debts. You won't have anything left, and your medical bills are only going to get bigger. Good luck." Her eyes fluttered shut. She signed the papers without another word. The company was mine. She took what little money was left and vanished. She was selfish to the very end. She left her parents, who had doted on her entire life, to face her creditors with nothing. She didn't even leave them enough for retirement. The last I heard, the old couple was being hounded by debt collectors and had fled to the countryside to hide. Chloe didn't last long. She burned through her money quickly and, due to her deteriorating health, died alone in a hospital a few months later. No one even came to claim her body. Her parents wanted to, but they didn't have the means. They could only watch from afar as their daughter's story came to a grim end. As for Claire and me, we had our wedding. It had to be fast. Her belly was becoming difficult to hide. The ceremony was simple, intimate, and romantic. Claire's mother tried to cause a scene, but Ivan was there to run interference, arguing with her until her blood pressure spiked, and she had to be taken to the hospital. According to Claire, her mother had pulled the same stunts when she married Ivan. The woman seemed determined to sabotage any chance of happiness, having driven Claire's father to move abroad, never to return. 6 months later, Claire gave birth to a beautiful daughter. She was perfect. Claire is fiercely protective of her, determined to ensure our daughter never becomes as blinded by love as I once was.